Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters. My name is Cobergerond. Today I've got NWB Nii Wallace-Bruce with me, and this is the next episode in our NFTs on PSP. Today we're going to take a little more of an in-depth look at the NFL All Day platform and identify some of the players that may be getting significantly overlooked because there's a lot of people on it right now who don't know that much about football. I'll get into more of that later, but for right now, I'm going to pass it off to Nii and we're going to talk a little bit about linebackers.
Thanks, Cope. Now, one thing to understand here is the defensive side of the ball is reactive. So, unlike the offense where players make plays, the defense is all about chasing the ball, getting after those who are making the plays. So, it's a little bit inverse in terms of the relationship statistically. So, that's something we need to keep in mind when we're looking at linebackers, safeties, defensive tackles. It's all about reacting to the play that's happening. But in saying that, we've got 4 or 5 linebackers that you can look at in the marketplace today and maybe make some money in the future.
And these are specifically players that are currently at the moment of this video $10 or less on the marketplace. Let's begin it off.
Yeah, let's start off with Camu Grugier-Hill from the Houston Texans. Now, Grugier-Hill's on a defense that it's not good. Houston is not good. They're the team that doesn't know who their quarterback is. They struggled last season, and as a result, their defense spent a lot of time on the field. So that's actually a good thing for someone like Grugier-Hill in terms of statistics, because that means he has more snaps defensively, and he's going to have more tackles, more tackle opportunities. So that's someone I will be targeting, especially if there's a challenge coming up next season for tackles. He's someone I'll be looking at.
I'm going to jump in here. So this is something that a lot of you may not realize when it comes to what could be happening with challenges moving forward. When they start actually doing the NFL all-day challenges, I think a lot of people are going to approach this the way they approach fantasy football. And both of us are heavily involved in fantasy football. We both play aggressively to win. And one of the things you generally do in fantasy football is you avoid bad teams.
Except on the defense.
Except on the defensive side, but most people do not involve defensive players in fantasy football. They may involve just the one DST as your blanket defense, but that doesn't really take into account how important it is to maybe have specific players in situations that are terrible when it comes right down to it. So that first pick of Nii's makes total sense. Houston, this is a team that you would not have drafted many players from for fantasy football purposes, but when it comes to challenges and especially tackles, a linebacker on Houston, that's gravy.
There we go. So hopefully Lovie Smith turns the team around. He's a defensive-minded coach. I think that may work in Grugier-Hill's favor as well going into 2022.
All right. The next guy's got a similar situation.
There we go. So Covey is hinting at CJ Mosley. Now, CJ Mosley plays on the New York Jets, who are statistically the worst defense in the NFL. 32 out of 32. Robert Saleh has a lot of work to do to turn this defense around. However, Mosley is probably one of the shining lights. He was very good in Baltimore. He is the leader when he's on the field in that defense. I believe he's out of contract or he's coming towards free agency. So it is interesting to monitor his status. He almost needs to stay on the Jets. He's one of the few leaders on that team, outside of maybe Quinn Williams. And when he's on the field, he has a good chance to get 80 to 100 tackles a season.
Yeah, when you think of the New York Jets, if you're a fan at all of football, probably the only player that pops to mind is CJ Mosley when it comes to star potential. He is a legitimate star linebacker, right? If you were to put him on a good defense, he would still be a massive factor because of how he controls the center of the field. So I think even if he doesn't stay in New York, which I think he probably will, to be honest, but even if he doesn't, having a CJ Mosley isn't a bad thing no matter where he lands.
Yeah, and one thing that he brings to the table that many other linebackers on this list may not is that he calls plays. He has the green dot on his helmet, and when you have that green dot, you are the defensive play caller, and you will spend 99 to 100 snaps on the field because you are the one that is guiding the 11 guys around on the unit.
That's right. Provided he's healthy, he doesn't miss a snap. Right? Which brings us on to the first player actually on a decent defense.
I think you're referring to Mr. Mosley's former team in Baltimore, so that'll be Tyus Bowser.
That's right.
Now, Baltimore, this is actually very valuable to me. This is a nice value price because Baltimore was panned last year. Their defense had a lot of injuries. They lost Marcus Peters. Their secondary was shredded by the time the year finished. And Lamar Jackson got injured as well, so that put the defense out there on the field a lot more, so that highlighted some of the issues that they were having.
They pretty much played the entire season without their starting running backs, like their first string and second string, which meant that they couldn't really eat clock even during games. So there was a lot of pressure put on the defense last year.
Absolutely. So this is a nice upside play with Bowser because I think the Baltimore defense recovers next season. Pittsburgh are going to suck in that division. More than likely they're going to suck. I know Cincinnati will be there. If Cincinnati don't address that offensive line, they're still going to be a source of big plays. And Cleveland, Baker Mayfield, hopefully he gets back healthy, but if he doesn't, and if Jarvis Landry leaves as he's threatening to, Baltimore could be a team that is on the rise in the AFC North, a division that is a source of big plays on defense.
I'm glad you mentioned Cincinnati. Something that people need to understand here is Cincinnati's in a very unique situation in that they made it to the Super Bowl with a substandard team. Cincinnati is something like they have over $50 million worth of cap space coming to them. So this isn't one of those situations where a team gets to the Super Bowl and then the next season half their players are gone. You're going to see a better Cincinnati Bengals team next year. 100%. They are going to spend money on shoring up the offensive line, and they're probably going to add some additional depth in the secondary as well on the defensive side of the ball. So I expect Cincinnati to be an even stronger team than they were this year, which just makes it that much more difficult for Baltimore to get back in position.
Absolutely. But Bowser, that's definitely a name I like for this marketplace in terms of value plays.
I like to say that so far, out of the three that have been mentioned, I already have two of them on my collection. So Nii's lockstep with me in terms of thinking here, because I just told him go ahead and pick out your top five or so under $10, and we'll see where we go. What's next?
Yeah, great minds think alike, and we didn't pre-prepare this. He just said show up. I showed up, and this is what we do on the Personals Podcast. In saying that, next up we have Devondre Campbell from the Green Bay Packers. Now, Devondre Campbell had a breakout season. This is a guy who struggled. I believe he was in Arizona before. Anyway, he's come to Green Bay and he's found himself again. He was getting tackles, he was getting big plays, and even though Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith on the edges were injured, Campbell still doing work in the middle. They need this guy to be there as the guy next season, and whether Aaron Rodgers stays or leaves, doesn't matter. They're pretty solid on defense, and this is one of the reasons why.
And in the NFC, this might not be recognizable to a lot of casual fans, but in the NFC in particular, the slot corner is extremely important. Some of the best wide receivers in the NFC are all slot receivers. It's not about these big, deep threats anymore. Green Bay is one of the actual, antithesis to that because they've got one of the best receivers in football, maybe. Okay.
Yeah,
this is a free agency year, right?
Right.
It's a free agency for Adams, but I look at it like basically Green Bay is going to have to give Adams a contract in order to have a chance at keeping Rodgers. So I expect both of them to still be there next year. But even if they aren't, that doesn't affect Devondre Campbell's value because he's protecting the middle, and there are a lot of great slot receivers in the NFC.
Not just that, there's a lot of great running backs in the NFC, and he has to do a lot of tackling against those teams. So whether it's Minnesota or Chicago, if they run to the 49ers again, he gets busy. But even then, he also has some pretty good pass rush potential. Next on the list is Alex Singleton, staying in the NFC. So this is a guy who used to play in the CFL. Justin probably knows him. Shout out to Justin Williams. Pretty sure he played for Calgary Stampeders. Anyway, he took his talents to the NFL, and he's taken his tackle game to a new level. The last 2 seasons, this guy's been the man for the Eagles.
Again, another shit team.
Yeah, and the Eagles overachieved. They had a pretty soft schedule. It's going to be interesting to see if Jalen Hurts can take it to the next level. If Hurts falls back, or if they don't get a big name quarterback like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, it's again, Singleton's going to be out there a lot. He'll be busy. He'll be tackling. and he has a pretty good coverage game as well. He's pretty solid with pass defenses. This is a very underrated name that I like, that most people haven't heard of. So if he's out there in the marketplace, definitely take a look at Alex Singleton.
Yeah, I like Singleton as a pick here. I don't have him on my collection yet. I'll probably be adding him soon enough. Generally speaking, I just kind of hate the Eagles. So it's a personal thing for me to go ahead and buy one of their players, but I end up doing it anyways. There's a couple of things that's additionally beneficial when it comes to NFC teams, is that the NFC tends to be a higher scoring conference in general. And higher scoring conferences create more opportunities for turnovers generally. So a lot of these players also have turnover potential. It's not something you'd be looking at right away, but it's an added bonus that could come into effect later when the challenges are there.
Yeah, especially when you look at New York is in that division. New York seemingly wants to hang around with Daniel Jones. Washington, they may get another quarterback.
They kind of have to.
They may get someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, and then Dallas will throw the ball around with Dak Prescott, and they're going to run a lot through Tony Pollard or Zeke Elliott. Singleton will get his statistics. He'll get his stats.
That's right.
Speaking of guys that get stats, let's talk about Foye Oluokun in the NFC South. Now, he had a great season.
Yeah,
for the
fantastic.
Falcons, right? Over 100 tackles, sprinkling some coverage plays as well, some interceptions. But he's actually a free agent coming up this spring. So Atlanta's in some cap pain. I don't know if they can hold on to him, but if they can, great for them, because they could generally win that division. But if they don't, he could end up somewhere like San Francisco. He could end up anywhere. He's played so well that he can almost choose where he wants to go.
That's right. So anywhere he goes, he's going to have real potential. He's going to put together some real numbers for sure. Mm-hmm. And something I want to make a point of here is the last three players Nii has picked: Devondre Campbell, Alex Singleton, Foye Oluokun. These are all sub-series. Okay, these are not basic commons. You've got Devondre Campbell and Alex Singleton. They're both part of the Make the Stop series, so they're going to have additional collector value, right? They're only numbered to 7,000, and then Foye Oluokun's even better. He's part of the He Got Game series. He's only numbered to 6,000. So not only are you getting players that have great challenge potential, but you're also getting moments that have great collectability because they're part of these subsets. And all of these are coming in at under $10. It's absolutely ridiculous because the starting price on these should be closer to $20. So right now is a complete buyer's market. People do not know what they're doing. They don't recognize these names. So they're going for dirt cheap, and you should be taking advantage.
Absolutely. And I'm just looking at the Oluokun moment. I'm just watching it live right now as we record. And it was actually against Detroit. This is actually a game-winning interception. I do recall this one because...
Well, yeah, that's what the He Got Game series is. The He Got Game series is a play that finishes the game. It's the deciding play that ends it. So it could be a sack, like what we saw in the Super Bowl, pretty much. It could be an interception. It could be just a pass defended, or maybe a 2-point conversion, or the final kick, like a Evan McPherson kick to win the game.
There we go.
That's what the He Got Game series is. So in this situation, it was a pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Oluokun was in my fantasy team, so that's how I remember.
Oh, nice.
If you want fantasy advice, slide into our DMs. Our DMs are open, and we may or may not respond.
Now, a couple of just little honorable mentions here. If you scroll down a little further, now we're beyond the $10 point, but I still want to just tell you what's happening here. So there's both a Von Miller and TJ Watt moment. The Von Miller is currently going for $12. The TJ Watt, it just jumped to 22, but a moment ago it was actually down to 14. So someone just bought the $14 level and it just jumped up. But still, a Von Miller moment for $12. Von Miller may not be on the LA Rams next year, but that does not matter. Von Miller will get sacks anywhere he goes. He'll get quarterback pressures anywhere he goes. He will get a ton of tackles for loss anywhere he goes.
And Von Miller will go to the Hall of Fame. And
yes.
TJ Watt, that's I think one thing to consider. Von Miller and TJ Watt, they're going to the Hall of Fame. So if you want to hold on to these for the longer term, I get it.
But what we're looking at today really is the challenge potential. And those are some of the linebackers that we've identified under $10 that can basically start your collection off when you're looking to stack players who potentially have top tackle numbers in the NFL next season.